We're going to call the Wednesday, May 4th, 2016 Norco City Council to order. All council persons are present and accounted for. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Robin Grunmeyer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll then have our prayer led by Paul Argiasia, Beacon Hill Assembly of God. Come on up, buddy. Welcome, Paul.
It's my privilege to be here, and Pastor Rene filling the place of Pastor Rene Forrest, our pastor of Beacon Hill Assemblies of God, and we're here to pray. And so we all bow our heads and pray. Almighty God, we come to you. We thank you, Lord God, for this city. It's a pleasure to live in this place. I like, Lord, the pleasure to roam around, sometimes to skip the highway because of the enormous beauty of the place. We thank you, Lord God, that the city you brought people for leadership. You brought the council, oh God, to come together and work together. And Lord, here they are having the load on their shoulder, a great responsibility for the task of the change. There's a lot of change that's going around the city. We see a lot of growing establishment, businesses, and Lord, the population, the growth of transportation, Lord God, the growth of population and many things, Lord God, and we are facing a lot of challenge, and we place everything into your hands. Right now, Lord God, I pray for you, Almighty God. You know our limitation. Just as Abraham Lincoln has said, it is impossible to rule a city without God in the Bible. The same thing that we can say that it's impossible to rule a city as small as Norco without you, Lord God. So you know our limitation. So we place into your hands the ever-changing adjustment that these men and women of service that you brought into this place. We ask you, Lord God, that you, Lord, give them a wisdom and knowledge of creativity. They are going to do a lot of changes, Lord God, to create things, Lord God. Help them, Lord God, strengthen them, and enable them to do these tasks. So, Lord, we acknowledge you, God, that these men and women, that they need you today. They need your wisdom and knowledge. Give them, Lord God, what they need, because they are limited, and you are powerful, and we are facing, Lord God. We are located in the city of Norco, a place where it's with sandwich with Corona and Ontario, Lord God. This fast-changing world, they need you, Lord God. They need you. This is all we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. So we have some proclamations this evening, but first off, this first one is actually very near and dear to my heart. This came from 1918, and most people don't know that in 1918 we were known as Orchard Heights, and we had lost one of our residents to World War I at a place called Gallipoli, of all places. He was an airplane mechanic. So if the Poppy folks would come on up. Come on up, come on down. And before we sort of move into this, could we have all the veterans stand? Anybody who served in the military? Yes, you. Just want to thank you for your service. So, I think we'll begin by me reading this proclamation, okay?
Thank you.
And thank you for coming. So, proclamation. Whereas the red poppy can be traced back to a single individual, Mona Michael, in November 1918, she was so moved by a soldier's poem that she wrote a response. Quote, "The blood of heroes never dies, but lends a luster to the red of the flower that blooms above the dead of Flanders fields," unquote. and on impulse she bought a bouquet of poppies and handed them out to businessmen in New York and asked them to wear the poppy as a tribute to the fallen soldiers of World War I. It since has become the memorial flower of the American Legion Auxiliary, and whereas the poppy is a memorial tribute to honor the fallen, those who have died in service to their country, as well as the millions of Americans who have willingly served and continue to serve their country. And whereas the poppy program is the oldest and most widely recognized American Legion Auxiliary program, each year, millions of bright red crepe paper poppies are distributed and exchanged for contributions exclusively to assist and support disabled and hospitalized veterans and their families. Now, therefore, I, Kevin Bash, Mayor of the City of Norco, on behalf of the Norco City Council, do hereby recognize the week of May 19th through the 15th, 2016, as Poppy Week. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Do you have anything you want to say?
You should know. You did a good job.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
By the way, while we're here, I just want to introduce Irving Hendrick. He is the actually interim president of Norco College. He's here to sort of check us out. It's interesting. We're talking about Silver Lakes and Norco College, two of our crown jewels tonight. So it's thank you, sir, very much for coming. Mental Health Month. It's perfect that I should read this. Who's here for that? Yeah, just me. Well, you know what? What we've done is we've done a proclamation, and one of the things mental illness touches everybody. We all have family members, friends that have struggled with some of these issues. And so just so we know, the month of May, on behalf of the City Council, I, the Mayor, we have made this proclamation that this is Mental Health Month, the month of May 2016. All right. This is my daughter's deal. I'm sorry to tell you, I use my position. She's turning me into a tree hugger, I'm afraid. And she said, "Dad, we're losing the monarch butterflies." And so what's happening is that we have a 9-acre complex on my property, and we've got, I think, 6 of them now. And we'll be putting one somewhere in the city of Norco. And basically what this is monarch butterfly month to try to preserve this species. And just a few things. The monarch butterfly is a North American species whose multi-generational migration and metamorphosis from caterpillar to butterfly has captured the imagination of millions of American cities all across the country are doing this. Primarily what we're trying to do is to create habitats for these butterflies as they move from place to place to place to have a place to stay. So we have declared this the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, the month of May, to be Monarch Butterfly Month. I think, Robin, you're going to handle this one. This is the FFA. Not sure what this is. Norco High School Agricultural Department donation to the Senior Center. So you're not going to do this? Whoa. So you're going to give a donation to the Senior Center? Wow. Well, here you go. Why don't you turn to them? They're much more important than we are.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Kavianian, and my name is Arlene Rodriguez. And we are from the Norco High School Agriculture Department. We're here to present to you the donations we have raised for the Norco Senior Center through our economics class. We have a little slideshow. Just go on our cube. So Ms. G, as our teacher, has challenged us with the $5 challenge. We are each given $5, and from that we had to create a fundraiser and then donate the gatherings to an organization. It could either be a giant organization throughout the whole nation or just a local one, and so we chose the Senior Center.
For our project, we decided to buy Little Caesars pizza and sell it at our school after school. And why we chose pizza is because after school, most students tend to be hungry still. So we knew that pizza was going to be something that would hit at school.
Why the Norco Senior Center? We decided to donate to the Senior Center because we knew that creating an impact in our community would start from showing others that we want to support everybody in the community. So we've also donated to the Senior Center before through the Norco FFA by their food drive and things like that. So we already had a connection with them that we felt we needed to continue.
In our group, we had 5 people, which was $50. 10 people, sorry, 10 people, so we started with $50. And we raised $233.30.
Oh, there are some pictures of us. Oh, yeah.
I guess it would be Michelle. So 233. You know, this is the future. It's amazing. And the Norco graduates, we have 3 of them on our council. I tried to get Cheryl to let us become center of the universe. And we're gonna get that. We're gonna declare ourselves center of the universe. So Michelle, why don't you take this? Oh, Peggy, I'm sorry. Come on up, Peggy. Well, here, let me take that. So moving on to city council business items, city council communications. Somebody like to start? Greg, go ahead.
Well, good evening, everyone. This last Thursday, April 28th, we had our regular board meeting of the Western Riverside County Regional Wastewater Authority, otherwise known as RCWA. And one bit of information I'd like to share is that in addition to the tours that we've been given, we have these community chats at the plant off of Barron Drive, and there are 2 remaining. One is tomorrow, May 5th, and the next one is Saturday, May 14th. And I'm going to give these to the city clerk so that you can maybe put it in the weekly highlights. And then just a quick rundown on our board meeting that, months ago, in discussions with the 14 million gallon a day plant expansion that we're doing, we received from Southern California Edison savings by design. We were to have a check presentation in the amount of $500,000, but Edison did the presentation, but then deferred giving us the check till maybe next year. And but at the end of the day, when the plant's completed and the electrical energy efficiency of this, it should defer about $1 million a year in operating costs just for Edison. So I think in the long run, it's going to be a good deal. We conducted a public hearing to consider the approval of the Regional Pretreatment Agreement and Sanitary Sewer System Enforcement Response Plan. And why that's important to us is that Norco will be required to update ours, and then we will have a public hearing on that. Just a short construction update. We're 52% complete on the project and still looking to have that completed next year. And then under closed session, we had our existing litigation, and this is on our Water Resources Board, our change of use petition, and at this time there is no reportable action. Did I do that good job? Just, you taught us well. That's my report, Mayor. Thank you.
The Riverside County LAFCO Local Agency Formation Commission was last week. Nothing that affected Norco occurred there, so that's the easiest way I can explain it. I had the privilege of sitting on, is this the inaugural James Evans? Yes, okay. This is the James B. Evans Memorial Scholarship over at the high school. Let me tell you, we got these kids were here. We got some great students, and it was tough. We had 8 students that applied for the scholarship program. They had to be their parents had to work in law enforcement. And Kevin, thank you. It was a tough decision. I don't know. We picked. There was myself and Jim Pixley and Vicky from CRC. We sat on this board. All of us have law enforcement backgrounds, and thank you for making it a very tough decision. Good kids. Anyway, I'll wait until later, but we did find one, and it's just, I'm proud of the fact that we sat there and did that, and the fact that and thank you, Kevin, for helping contribute to that. I am also on the Veterans Memorial Committee. And I want to remind everyone on Monday, May 30th, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., we are going to have our continuous salute and ceremony at the George Ingalls Memorial Plaza. We have a guest speaker, some guy by the name of Lieutenant General Brooks Bash will do the Kevin, you know, yeah, I got to dig you. He'll be there, and he'll do the presentation. This is hosted by the American Legion, and right after it, the Legion will have, for a good, honest Memorial Day, they'll have hot dogs and hamburgers served down at the American Legion Post after it's over with. But please come join us. For all my veterans, fellow veterans, there we have some room on the volunteer sign-up sheet for the continuous memorial salute. You got 5 minutes, stand and salute the flag. If you want to come up here after the meeting and put your name down here, we'll get a hold of you and get it filled up, and it doesn't hurt to have 2 people signing up at this, saluting the flag at the same time. So don't, your service does not go unnoticed in Norco. Also, lucky me, I get to go out to La Quinta tomorrow on Thursday and Friday and join our fellow citizens and cities from several counties in the Southern California Association of Government meeting. I'm looking forward to it. Kevin knows I'm teasing him about this one. So, thank you.
Robin?
All right, so on April 27th, I was here at City Hall for a fair negotiations contract meeting with several folks from the city and the fair board. On Thursday, I was here with Mr. Hoffman as well for a lesson on the history of the Navy base and what happened over there and the history that goes along with the historic preservation. So that was very interesting. On Saturday the 30th, I was able to attend the funeral mass for Anna. It was a really good service, and you could tell that she had a good heart and had a good sense of humor just even through the funeral mass. So I was able to attend that. On Monday, May 2nd, we had our unload meeting, and it was so full we had to bring in extra chairs to the room. So that was really exciting to see so many people participating in that organization and the work that Eric's done to involve people, and had a guest speaker there that was able to give us some additional resources for helping people that, you know, are under the effects of addiction, or family members that are reaching out for folks that are having those issues. And then yesterday I met with Andy and Cheryl in kind of the beginning drafts of how we're going to include students in our city government and some options for that. And so that's it.
Erwin?
So it's been kind of busy the last couple of weeks. Had a RCTC meeting last Monday, subcommittee meeting, went over some things, excuse me, different projects that they're working on. The main one, of course, is the 91, and you'll notice they're getting ready, they're building the flyover ramps at the 91 going into the 15, which they won't complete until they do the construction on the 15. But from Monday, May the 2nd to Saturday, May the 7th, every night, the southbound 15 is closed at the 91 freeway down to about Magnolia, so you have to detour. And if you want to catch updates on these road conditions, you can go to rctc.org. Their website shows the construction and what's going on, and also if you're getting ready to leave home or leave work or something, you want to know what the road conditions are, you can have an app on your phone. It's IE511. It shows all the current traffic conditions, what's going on. If there's a wreck and the road's closed, you might want to take a detour. Moving over to RTA, the buses, we had a meeting today, subcommittee meeting, finance committee. It was mainly just budget stuff, like we went over here earlier today with ours, and a lot of that stuff passed on to the big board meeting, and they'll vote on it in 2 weeks. I sat on the English Park Master Plan Committee, and the subcommittee of that is the Arts Committee, and you notice we put those horses on the hill last year, and up here at 6th and Crestview at the entrance to our park. Well, the rest of our artwork should be here and be installed by July the 1st. We're going to have a stagecoach, a roper, and a barrel racer coming in. So they should be in by July the 1st this year. Had Day of the Cowboy meeting. It's coming along pretty good. That's the 3rd or the 4th Saturday in July, which I believe is the 23rd. This year we have the stagecoach, gunfight with Sheriff Stan Sniff and a bunch of the local outlaws. And this year we've got several specialty acts, one of them being a group of veterans out of Winchester. And they're war veterans, they're Marines, ex-Marines, and they do rodeo bullfighting. So we've got them coming in this year. They're going to do two specialty acts for us up here. And last Wednesday, Councilman Newton and myself, we had our annual breakfast with Sheriff Stan Sniff, and we went over the plans for his part in the Day of the Cowboy. He participates in that. This will be about the 6th year that he comes out and participates at, and I think last year he got Captain Horton from Harupa involved in it, and they're looking forward to it. But then he sat there and explained to us the happenings in the county with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. It's very interesting to sit there and talk to him. We feel honored that he takes his time to come and meet with us once a year. But that's all I have.
Thank you. Quickly, I went to my WRCOG meeting, and a couple of issues coming up. One is SB 1102, and our governor, what he would like to do is to centralize all TOT tax, and he would charge a nominal fee. So I'm a little nervous about that, and we haven't taken a position with the League of Cities yet. This is from the League of Cities, but I'm assuming we will oppose it as we did before. Another one that may affect Norco, without revealing too much, AB 2320, which would pass laws against drones and would preempt all local laws to try to protect people from stalking. So it would really limit the way we can fly drones and things like that. One of the other issues that came up, homelessness is a huge issue in the county. Transportation is a big problem, which I'm glad Berwyn keeps us informed of. But the big one that everybody's struggling with is infrastructure, streets, roads, that kind of stuff. Homelessness, big problem. And then I'm really proud to announce, and I want to be, Ted and I kind of beat me to it, but we were sort of small minds think alike. But this year's 2016 WRCOG Award for Outstanding Community Service is going to our own Kathy Azevedo. That is a huge deal. And stupid me, I was hoping it was going to be a secret. She goes, "Hey, did I win this award?" I'm like, "Oh, stop." There's this 14th, if you want to help people, there's a red day. I'll give you more information. Just give me a call. Waste Management supplying a 40-yard roll-off and stuff. We're going to clean up a senior's home. I know Lance has done stuff like that before. One of the problems, I was at my STAR meeting today, and I'd never realized this, but 28% of our population by 2020 is going to be 28 years old. 28 years old, I'm sorry. Is going to be seniors. And so one of the things that I think we need to look at is to really look to see how we're going to, fulfill some of the things they want to do, the kind of recreation things they want to do. Today's senior, today's 60-year-old is today's 40-year-old. That's what they told me today. And when I see them, I believe them. Food program is going great guns. And then finally, I sit on the GG oversight board with Corinne Holder and Stacy Azevedo. Not Stacy Azevedo, but Stacy. And Norco Elementary, I got a couple calls on this. They're completely renovating that school, and it'll happen between 4/16 and 12/17. And what they're going to do there is completely revamp that entire school. They're going to do all of the road going into it, but it's going to be a mess for a good year. The other thing that's going to happen, there's 4 schools they're starting with, but they're going to be doing fencing. Between now and 12/16, Washington, Victor Spower, and then the other ones that they'll be doing in package 3 will be Sierra Vista, Highland, Riverview, and Norco High School. The big push right now is safety, and to bring IT up to snuff. There's a bunch of other things, but I think that's enough for now. So let's move on to City Council consent items. Does anybody wish to pull something at this time? Pull F. Anyone else?
E, G, and H.
E, G, and H. So right now I have E, F, G, and H pulled. I have Ted with F, and I have Greg with the other 3. Anybody else? Do I hear a motion to approve the others?
Mayor, I do have a card for item 2I.
2I, all right. It's a resident.
Yes.
Is that another one? Or is that a public comment?
Yeah, let me check, make sure. Yeah, these are for ones that have been pulled.
Do I hear a motion to approve the remaining items?
Move to approve.
Newton. Hoffman.
Yes.
Grunmeyer. Hannah. Bash.
Yes.
Motion passes.
So Ted, since you pulled first, let's go to item F.
Thank you.
Or do you want to take them in order?
You can take them in order.
What does council want to do? All right, let's go to E. City
E.
manager would like to go in order. So Greg, you're first.
Thank you, Mayor. And I was hoping Gina was going to be here. The reason I pulled this was at the last council meeting, I talked about with the Chino DeSalter Authority Board and the refunding bond issue that we approved at the CDA. And I said there may be some potential savings. And when I pressed the board on what those amounts were, they laid it all off on our finance officer and couldn't give me the answer at that time. So what I wanted to do was compliment Gina, for her work in regard to these refunding bonds, and just to let the audience know that this will be saving us approximately $37,000 annually. So kudos to Gina and Andy, for going through that and getting us the answers that the board couldn't give. So And with that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Just for clarification, just so people know, Gina had a death in the family. That's why she's not here tonight. So do we have you've made a motion to approve. I second that.
Hannah, Grunmeyer, Hoffman,
Yes.
Bash,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on, Ted, item F.
Thank you, Mayor. In our ground lease with Balboa on this project, on the Silver Lakes project, and this is just regarding the acceptance of public improvements that the Silver Lake Equestrian and Sports Center is complete. In the ground lease under Exhibit H, we have the forms of certificate of completion that are required. And in my staff report, I didn't see them. I'm just trying to make sure that those get done. I know we talked about this last time. These are supposed to be done at the certificate that we have these certificate of completions, and it should be done at once we accept these. So these are going to be done. Okay, so this will be done within
Once you accept them.
once we accept them and do it. Okay, I just want to make sure we get these done. They're not overlooked. All right, thank you.
I have a
Yeah.
question. And Chad, I guess I'll have to ask you, even though you weren't here at the time for a lot of this. My concern is with the installation of some of the storm drain structures and the paving that on our inspection schedule, that it seems to me that there was a gap in inspections on the installation of some of these infrastructure items. And how did we deal with that and that void in inspections?
Well, since coming on board, I've got myself educated with staff as far as the history of the facility, how we've been involved, and staff staff has been involved since the beginning of that project, since when they started putting in the facility, the infrastructure in 2013. Our inspection group has been part of all work that's been done, whether it's water, sewer, the storm drain. We've been out there and observed, taken pictures, prepared reports on all those utilities. So while there has been activities been going on, we've played a little bit of catch up as far as Silver Lake's trying to get initially open last September. Everything that they did, we still inspected. We went and verified what they had done. We did potholing to verify depth thickness on any particular surfaces, and anything that was not to design, they will plan it and we'll do the final. But they did some work that was meant to be temporary, which we've identified that they will go back and final it with the with the actual design, versus some areas that have been completely finished. We have verified and determined all those areas and are tracking the areas that need to be completed.
But we didn't have inspections at the time of installation.
No, we did. We were there.
Just said that you had to go back and we had to pothole and
No, and again, we have one inspector for the city, and he does other projects.
Right.
So we just try to make sure we have the communication with the contractor, so that when he's doing work, and he's doing work all over that center at one time, and this was in the last 9 months when they were trying to get open. While we might have been out there exactly when they were laying all the asphalt in one particular area, we know their plan was, to do only 1.5 inches over native, when initially it's going to be required to be 3 inches. And we just document that, saying, okay, they'll come back at a later date and we will finalize that to get that last coverage. Versus roadways, it was done 4 over 6, and we have and for traditionals, we don't actually go out there and watch them do it. We'll have them pothole to make sure they have the correct thickness in select areas. So that's how we verify it's the correct thickness. We don't need to be there watching as they lay that asphalt at that time.
No, not continuously, but
Right.
to me, the burden's on the developer to call for an inspection and schedule it as work progresses. And it seems that didn't take place in some instances.
I'm not saying it was perfect, for sure, but we were out there most of the time, and we tried to accommodate the contractor as much as we could to be out there when he needed. But the work has been done to this point to meet our satisfaction that the job was completed correctly for the things we're approving tonight for the utilities.
It's also mentioned in this report that, and I'm going to make the assumption since I didn't look at it, was that originally we had a planned maintenance building and that we were going to run a potable water line to that, and that the developer has now requested to take the maintenance building and not construct that
At this time.
at this time. But then kind of what throws me is that in the staff report, it's important to note that Balboa is responsible for all maintenance and repair of these on-site improvements throughout the term of the ground lease. But we take away the maintenance building. So,
Well, the maintenance building, my understanding, is for their landscaping entity to use and store equipment, etc. So at this time, they've just chosen not to build it. Doesn't mean they couldn't. It's just at this time they're not choosing to build it. They may try to relocate to a different area, which again, we'd have discussions with the city about where that's going to be, how it's going to be changed. But at this time, they just have asked to not put that in. We were okay with it. It wasn't a requirement that they had to build it. It was just noting they wanted to build a maintenance building that might have been facilitated with a potable water line. At this time, they're not choosing to build it.
okay, and then my last, I guess, statement on that is, and your last statement on the report, that building and safety staff will continue to coordinate with Balboa's staff to ensure all construction work is properly inspected. I mean, that should go without saying. Is there anything we're going to be doing differently to communicate with them?
No, we've been meeting on a weekly basis. We make sure that the relationship has been that they call our inspectors, contact and work with the contractor every day, get his schedule for that day. Do you need us for anything? And if they don't, then we know our guys shouldn't plan to be there on site, whether it's building or utilities. Obviously, utilities are going to pretty much be on the back burner until they choose to build any new facilities. But building department will continue to communicate with them every day as they're moving on with some of their future plans. But that's their directive to staff, is that you must communicate them with on a daily basis.
Thank you.
Any other comments on this? Do I hear a motion?
Mayor, I do have some cards on this.
Oh, okay.
Speakers may want to comment or decline. Sunday Barreto.
Hi, Sunday. How are you? Good. Well done this weekend and last 2 weeks. I'll bet you're tired. Yep.
Okay, so it's my understanding that all the inspections have been done and signed off at this point
Just for the utilities.
for the utilities. Okay, so, and you've been at all the week, you've been invited and gone to all the weekly construction and meetings and
Yeah, since I've been here, yeah.
Since you've
We've
been
been
here.
conducting meetings on a weekly basis when needed.
And so I'm not understanding why we would not go forward with this if they've met the requirements, as far as it's signed off and everything's ready to go. I don't know why we would not move forward with this. So that would be my bottom line. You know, I think that we're up and running. It's already, up and running, and you can't control the lack of the timing. I mean, I guess like he said that you're not there for everything, and we had inspections, but I think we're beyond that. I think we're at a point where we have the sign off and we're ready to move forward on this, and I think we should. So I'm gonna say no.
Thank you, Sunday.
I'll hold it.
We can't talk to you.
Jeff Cahan.
Oh yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah. Hi, Jeff.
Can you set my time, please?
Just one sec, Jeff. Do you know what that humming was? Did we stop that now? All right. It's gone now.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I'm glad that Greg is asking these questions, because I want to make sure that you feel comfortable. I know I want to feel comfortable, given the history of everything that's gone on in this project. We want to know for sure that everything's being done, everything's being inspected, everything's being approved. I appreciate the comments that were just made, knowing that Chad's been on the job relatively a short time, but he's been assured, and the way I read this staff report, it's got his name on it. It's got his signature. He's just testified, or whatever you want to call it. He's given his word that this stuff is in there, that it's been approved, that it's accepted. These are the things that we were expecting to get on this project. These are the things as it says in the background analysis paragraph at the bottom, the city facilities, those improvements related only to water, sewer, storm drain, and related infrastructure which are defined as acceptable for reimbursement of costs under the terms of the funding, construction, and acquisition agreement with Balboa. So if the things that they've said they were going to do, they've done, I understand why it was pulled, just to make sure that some good questions were asked. I'm confident from what I heard that everything's been answered. So I would simply urge the council to accept the project as it is and approve item 2F. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Pat Overstreet.
Hey, Pat.
Mayor, hello, and council. Well, my friend and neighbor Jeff Cahan was so eloquent. I just want to say ditto. And yes, we want to make sure everything's done. The I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, whatever it is we say. I am so for this project. Every Sunday, I have to tell you, my routine is I go to church. I get out of church and go to Dairy Queen where they know I want a single soft serve cone. And then I drive by Silver Lakes every single Sunday. And it's just amazing what's out there. So I want to be sure it's all done properly also. But I can't wait to have the project totally approved. So I am very much in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Linda Dixon.
Hi, Linda. Good to see
Good
you.
evening. I would like to encourage all of you to approve this. All of the inspections are in order. Everything has been signed off. All the T's have been crossed, I's have been dotted. And this wonderful project for our city is all ready, and it's in baby steps right now. And it's already showing our city that the tax dollars are going to come in, the thousands of people that come and stay in our hotels, restaurants, and the gas stations. We can't get hotels. You need to be working on the hotels. That's what you need to be working on. However, there's absolutely no reason not to approve this, and further discussion is kind of no reason for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
R.J. Brandis.
I just want to say a few words to the council, and I want to thank you. We have tried to cooperate in this process with the city in terms of the building of this big project, and it wouldn't have been done if we didn't have the total support of both staff and the council. I think it's very unusual for a developer to bring a city group into its weekly meetings to discuss our project. I've done a lot of real estate projects, and I don't think I know of any city that attends almost all of our construction meetings. We wanted that so that you had total visibility and transparency on what we're doing. And this is a project which is a public partnership, public-private partnership, and it's really for the benefit of the city. As we see it, we are helping to maintain your lifestyle, your rural lifestyle, and that's what the dollars we're driving to the city. And every weekend, you see those little stockings running down your street. And I think some of you complain you can't get your coffee in the morning, but it's not a bad thing on Saturday and Sunday. So I think we're trying in every way to make sure everybody in this town knows what we're doing. So I thank you for all your support. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Rosa Zuniga Green.
Hi, Rosa.
Hi. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council and staff.
You're short. You need to pull your mic down.
I would just like to say good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council and staff. I would just like to say that I did a little bit of research on how Silver Lakes is going, and I, like Pat Overstreet, do take a Sunday and go out and take a look at the park, and also on Saturdays. I have been at some of the various restaurants and have seen some of the soccer players, some of the other people that have been on site, and I've asked some questions, what they think about the park. And everybody is saying nothing but positive. I attended a horse show out there, Hunter Jumper, and I asked those folks, what they thought. They had some complaints like there's no shade and the wash stations are too far, but like I told them, it's a project that's in progress right now. I personally would like to say that you folks need to go ahead and support this project, move forward with it, because from everyone I've ever spoken to, whether they be from Carlsbad, Anaheim, Bakersfield, Pasadena, people that are coming out here, they really enjoy that park. We need to get moving on the hotels, because I've also been told that lots of people are going to Corona, and because that we don't have enough hotels here. And I just, want you to give your support to this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rosa.
Mayor, that concludes public comments.
We'll close public comments. Bring it back to council. Anybody have anything else to say? Do I hear a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion. By the way, if you go out there Tuesday night, drive by, they got kids playing out there Tuesday night now. I move to approve 2F.
Second.
Newton, Hoffman,
Yes.
Grunmeyer, Hannah, Bash.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to item G. Greg?
I guess is this going to Chad or Andy on this report?
That is my report.
Okay. And this basically is the request for an additional $425,000 up with the up to $6 million. The original 5.5 or 5.6, which funds were those paid through originally?
Those were paid out of the 2009 Water and Sewer Revenue Enterprise bond proceeds.
Okay. And then this remaining amount is going to come through our sewer capital and water capital project funds?
That's correct.
And then I guess one of my biggest concerns is that in 2013, the request for reimbursements that totaled that 5.5 stopped, and that we almost 3 years later, the request for the 400,000 comes forward, and that I think is my biggest concern right there. Is that even though the funding and acquisition agreement says up to $6 million, when have we ever followed that funding agreement? It just seems confused to me that it's gone back and forth. That how are we married to that agreement?
It's a contract.
Yeah, but we've never followed the contract.
Absolutely, we followed it.
To the letter of the law.
To the letter, in the sense that if there was an issue that it was ambiguous about, the council made a choice, and the developer made a choice about how to proceed. But otherwise, I mean, to answer your question, though, that when you guess ultimately the funding and acquisition agreement provides that the reimbursement comes when the facilities are complete, and we're accepting $8 million worth of facilities as we're required to under the Funding Construction Act.
6 million.
No, no, 8. 8.
How do you come up with 8?
That's basically the additional facilities which you have before you tonight are $2.8 million, and we have $5.5 million worth of facilities prior to that. So the sum total of the facilities which are being accepted
which would have been under the funding correction acquisition agreement and the lease. A total approximately, I mean, Andy would be more accurate, but approximately $8 million, which is, as I recall, pretty much what we expected the cost of all those facilities was going to be. It was pretty much acknowledged that the $6 million quote loan was not going to cover the cost of all of those facilities.
So basically, John, what you're saying is if I present you $2.7 million worth of invoices, 400,000 of them must be good.
No, what I'm saying, and it's not really me that's saying it, that of those, it's not of those invoices that Chad spent a great deal of time verifying that all those, the costs related to those facilities were accurately portrayed. I mean, Chad's probably is a better one. I mean, obviously I don't review that, but that's why it's taken the time to get where we are tonight. That staff has put in the time to verify the costs. That's why we're accepting those facilities tonight as well, because he put in the time to verify that facilities were constructed.
And John, to me, it's to you, Chad, is that you've linked all of those invoices to all the others? I mean,
we took the information provided for all the invoices of work that was performed, and all of this work was performed in 2015, and we have been able to verify that. And I've had our inspectors verify the invoices to say that yes, they observed this work that was being quoted being done. It was done during the time period that was specified, which again, because the last draw they had was back in 2013 when the initial majority of the utilities was put in. A lot of this work is cursory work to those utilities, and staff and myself did verify that this work was done in 2015. So it is since the last draw they have done this work, additional work of $2.5 million worth of stuff that they presented to us. Of that, your answer to your question is yes, it certainly does cover the 400,000 or so that they're looking to draw.
But didn't previously we just talk about lack of inspections? So how can some of these invoices tie to areas that weren't inspected thoroughly?
I don't think we've said there's a lack of inspection. I just think we have determined that the work was done. We are satisfied with the work that how it was conducted, and that we believe that the appurtenances that they submitted were put in during this most recent time period, which is relevant to the draw that they're seeking. It wasn't conditional or part of a previous work on a previous draw.
It just seems that like the staff report, it refers to the funding agreement, but it's somehow different. And that, I think that's what it all comes down to me. I just have a hard time with that we went this 3-year period without any request for the $400,000 while work was being done during that 3-year period.
He wasn't actually.
Well, you weren't there. I'm sorry.
Actually, Andy can comment probably better than I can, but we've certainly had requests for reimbursement. It's just that the facilities weren't completed, and the council wasn't willing to approve the reimbursement.
Well, then, just let me end that with our previous council meetings that the reimbursement agreement has been signed. Is that correct?
The reimbursement agreement between Balboa and the city of Norco.
Correct.
For the 5.5 million.
Right.
Yeah, that was signed back in January. That the city council approved that on January 20th, and following that date, the agreements were signed by both the city and Balboa.
And then, is there any other fund that this money would come out of, since our sewer capital project fund and our water capital project fund are both distressed?
Well, clearly the improvements that we are asking to be reimbursed are water and sewer improvements, and it's most appropriate that these funds come from those capital projects funds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know if it'll make you feel better or worse or nothing. But
anything you say always makes me feel better.
I know. I can tell. That in between the time that the $5.5 million was provided and today or last January, the remaining bond funds were expended on other sewer and water facilities, which would have we would have used the funds that Andy is looking at now to have built those. but we were required to finish off the bonds because of the time, and so they were used to supplant what otherwise would have been constructed without using bond funds.
Now,
That makes sense.
funding this out of any water capital or sewer capital projects, is there any IRS implications?
No, none of that.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Robin?
I just have a couple questions, probably for you, Andy. I did meet with Andy the other day just because I want to make sure I read everything myself. And so I read the funding, construction, and acquisition agreement from July of 2011. And just for folks that are in the audience and otherwise, the reference to the cost of $6 million is actually in the funding and acquisition agreement, stated 3 times in different sections of the document, referring to the amount that we would allow for the project. So it's pretty clear to me that that's what we said we would do, and we signed a contract for that. There are some sites in the document where it talks about inspection within 10 days following a receipt of notice from the tenant. And I'm thinking that's probably where Greg has some questions. Were those things done within the 10 days that were stated in the document as well? Even though it's not referring to the $6 million, again, in section 5.05, it does say that we will, the city, pay for and finance the actual costs that are incurred by the tenant. As to the cap, that's in section 3.02, again, the $6 million. And then it talks about, reasons why the city could withhold payment. And that's if the facility wasn't ready for its intended use, if they didn't meet the requirements, if notice of completions and things like that weren't done. So just in what I've read, they've met the obligations that are in this document. The only question that I had was there's amendment number 1, and it talks about the agreement again and the $6 million and the maximum amount. And it even states in the amendment that when this was written, they knew it was going to be a while before they got to the $6 million. It says, although the funded actual cost will not reach the maximum amount until sometime in the future, in order to provide additional security at a point in time earlier than what's required by the agreement, and it goes on. So they knew it was going to be a while before they got to the $6 million. My problem with the amendment is I cannot find the date on it. So I'm not sure when the amendment was listed. I know in section 3 it talks about the parties agree that a bank letter would be provided no later than August the 12th. Oh, here it is. Yeah, June. So that's July of 2011. Oh, right here. Oh, okay. So that was in 2012. So in reading through this document, I feel like they've met their obligations and held up to their side of the contract. And then the last part, Andy provided me copies of all the invoices and copies of all the work that's been done so that I could as well go through all of those documents myself and see what was on here. So, from my point of view and reading historical documents, in my opinion, and then the stuff that was submitted, I think Andy and staff have done what they've been asked to do in the contract, and as has Balboa.
Berwin?
Yeah, I remember when we gave that contract in 2011 and everything, and I know that the man has always been a man of his word, everything he told me. And he has had I think for the progress he's made in the last several months, probably since last summer, whatever it is, he's made giant steps forward with all the stumbling blocks that were thrown out in front of him there, with people calling the Internal Revenue and the State Finance Board and everything, trying to train wreck the project. I got a lot of respect for them, the way they came forward and got it all this far, and it's just going to get better. And it's going to get better for our city. And like the contract called for $6 million, and he's only used 5.5 something. I think that we should give him the remainder of the 400,000 and not argue about it. Thank you.
Jed, did you have something?
The only thing that comes to my mind is one single word: integrity. Being retired law enforcement, that's the one thing you leave in your career is you want to make sure that you're integritous in your actions. This city has to have a reputation of integrity if we want to get hotels, new restaurants, and things here. We have to be that integritous, is what the Romans coined it as. And we have to stay with that. I'm going to believe in Chad's integrity and his job and the staff and what they did on their inspections, because we're paying him to be that way. And if he's not a man of integrity, in a few years we'll find out. RJ has done what he's done over there on Silver Lakes. I don't mean to pick on him, because he said he was going to do it, and he's done it. He's opened the place up. It's a man of integrity. As a council, we weren't here. I wasn't here when they voted on this, but I have to carry that on. It's a contract. It's like John said. We are a word. We have to be who we are by the words we say, by what we write down. And as far as I'm concerned, we should let them have the rest of the money, and so be it. Thank you.
We have some cards.
Yes,
May we
Mayor.
open a public session? Okay.
Jeff Cahan.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. Great discussion. I'm glad we're talking about this. I'm glad that it was pulled so that it wasn't just approved as part of the consent calendar and everybody can go, oh, they just swept it under and approved it without talking about it. We're talking about it because it's important. But I also kind of, just the way I view this, it's almost a moot point because you've already approved on a 5-0 vote item 2F. You've already approved and accepted the reimbursable improvements that he put in. And from what I'm reading in the staff report, he's put in $2.7 million worth of receipts, knowing that he's only going to get $424,000 because that's the cap. So had we done this project maybe, I don't know what you want to say, the normal way, where the city would just put in the infrastructure and say, okay, we've put in the money, we've spent the $6 or $8 million, it's our land, it's our infrastructure, we've put it in. Now, Mr. Lessor, go ahead and do your business, and we've already taken care of the infrastructure for you. He's taken on the burden of putting in that infrastructure, and not at the end of the day, not at city cost. He's reimbursing us this money. So it's not like we're giving him a gift of the $424,000 on top of the $5.6 million that we've already loaned him. He's going to be paying that back with interest. So I'm assuming if it's coming out of the Water Capital Fund, that when those payments begin, that money is just going to go back in. It's going to pay off the bonds. The city's going to get the interest on those bonds from the interest that's built into the loan. So at this point, I'm looking at the $2.7 million that he's invested above and beyond what he's already done, knowing that he's only going to get back. So he's already $2 million more out of his pocket to help the city's infrastructure. And it's our property. We get to keep it. If he walks, that's our infrastructure. So I understand we want to be absolutely fiscally conservative. I understand we want to have the integrity, as Councilman Hoffman said. But in the end, we're getting more than what we would have spent had we done it ourselves. So I don't see any reason why we wouldn't want to help this project along, help him by just giving him the cap. The cap's at 6. So the 424 out of the 2.7 million that he's asked for really seems very reasonable. And again, you've already approved in 2F that you've accepted these, so there's really no reason to turn it down. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Pat Overstreet.
Hello again.
Mr. Mayor, Council. Thank you. And Mrs. Grunmeyer, thank you so much for putting it in a nutshell, because I reduced it to my basic grammar school math. You all know I'm rotten with budgets and numbers, so I had to have the take it to the most understandable for my little brain. And if we did have a contract for $6 million and Mr. Brandis still has 400,000 plus, we owe him that money to continue in phase one so we can get on to phase two. So I urge you to pass it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sunday Barretto.
Again? Oh, no, I'm teasing you.
Hola.
Hola.
There's nothing more that can be said that I think Robin and Ted so eloquently put. It is about ethics. It is about keeping our word as a city. That's who we are as a city. And so if we give our word, we darn well better keep it. And so everything else has been said. It's our property, blah, blah, blah. But I appreciate the comments that were said. So,
thank you, Sunday.
Corinne Holder.
Hello, Corinne.
Hello. Good evening, all.
Good evening.
I'm going to keep it kind of short since I've heard some of the other comments, but I would like to kind of echo Jeff in the fact that, consent calendar items, sometimes people as residents, if we don't have the time to kind of do all of our own homework, people feel that it does get a little brushed under the rug a little bit, or maybe you're not doing your homework as council people because they don't really get to hear you speak and give your opinion. So I do appreciate that these items as a whole have been pulled tonight so that people can hear your opinion and maybe get a little more detail from staff and know what's going on. But I agree, this is a contract that we have said we will pay up to $6 million. RJ and Balboa have come forward, they've done the work, they've put the time in through, we all know it's been like heck and high water. But they're still here, the improvements are in, they've been signed off on, and I think we need to honor that contract, and it does. It goes back to integrity. They've had the integrity to get it done, even though they could have walked a long time ago, and we have to have the integrity to uphold our end of the bargain and hold on to our word so that we can get new businesses coming in that are going to trust us when we say that we're going to help them out. Thank you.
Thank you, Corinne.
Lou Palsa.
Hello. Thank you for your
I have a letter here
service.
from a concerned citizen, so I'll just read it as she wrote it. This is like deja vu all over again. It was only a couple of months ago that Councilman Newton had this item removed from the proposed council action altogether. Councilman Newton suspected the only reason the item was on the agenda was because RJ had approached the city manager about it. However, the last time this came before council, Andy played like he had no idea what Greg was talking about. Congratulations, Mr. Councilman. This item proves that you knew exactly what was going on. Let me remind the council that the contract states we agreed to pay up to, and I stress up to, $6 million. Let me remind you also that we, the taxpayers, are bearing the burden of a $500,108 fine for the loan that we already made to Balboa. Therefore, we taxpayers have over $6 million into this loan, and I don't think RJ should get another dime of our hard-earned money. It is time to put the taxpayers and the city's needs first, not RJ's. Our infrastructure in town is falling apart, and that $153.83 would be better served south of the river, not north of it. Mr. Brandis was just approved for a $5.6 million loan, so why does he need our money? Finally, I urge you to read the agreement or the argument by RJ's attorney to the tax assessor about why he felt that he shouldn't have to pay the taxes on the property. With arguments that the city did not have the authority to enter into a lease agreement with him because they didn't own the property until February of 2015, and because the conditions precedent were not satisfied or waived, payments made by Balboa during the interim term did not constitute rent payments for the use of the property, we should be concerned. The argument basically states that the city extorted money out of him. Therefore, how do we know that he isn't going to sue us for non-rent payments in the future? Again, our money is better served south of the river. Sincerely, Lisa Campbell.
Thank you.
Linda Dixon.
Well, I'm glad I was able to come up here and follow that mouthful of misinformation. I strongly encourage you to approve this. Everything has been said, and I agree with most of what was said, with the exception of the last speaker. The RJ has fulfilled his commitments. In my working life, I was involved with many multi-million-dollar contracts. In order to get repeat customers, both government and commercial, you have to have your integrity. You have to go with ethics. And at this point, there is a contract. We would like for other large businesses to come into our community. And if we don't act honorably, they will hear about it and they will veer away. The only way that we can proceed with our heads high is to honor our commitments. We can grasp at straws and try to nitpick our way through this, but it's ethics, it's integrity. I don't know of any other contract that has been researched and read over and dissected as much as this contract. So let's just move on. Let's get our tax dollars going. Let's get phase 1 completed. Phase 2 is going to be amazing. And I encourage your vote.
Sue Bacon.
Hi, Sue. I'm
Good
sorry
evening.
about today, by the way.
Pardon me?
Sorry about today.
Oh, no problem. You know, I'm so proud to be a Norconian, and it's sort of funny that it's called Horsetown USA because it's sounding like Cow USA. We're chewing it, and we're chewing it, and we're chewing it. And that's all we continue to do. It's astounding to me that we let a handful of naysayers keep on going over a contract that has been signed. It's been signed. I mean, if I was RJ, I would have run far, long time ago. But he has stuck it out. His personal life has been totally made public. I cannot imagine a project being more visible and chewed over. It's astounding how something so successful can be so demeaned on social media and that people are listening to it. I know you run for elections. I get it, believe me. And I understand that you have to represent all of Norco. But that's what I'm asking you to do. Represent most of Norco and not a handful of just absolute naysayers and the Robin Hoods of misinformation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
RJ Brandis.
Long night. Thank you.
We've had much worse.
I've had much worse. I just want to clarify one thing, and that's that the reason why we had a long gap, if you recall, we didn't get our funding until last year on the 26th of February. So there was a gap in work on the property, and we didn't finish it up. So your question on why, I think everybody knew that we really didn't start the final phase of construction with the bond money until last year. So there was no hokum pokum here. It's a completely clear situation. We've done a lot more work on the property and the infrastructure than we expected to. We didn't ask you to pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Rosa Zuniga Green.
Thank you.
Hi, Rosa.
Hi, on the part of social media, I took some time to look some items up, so I just like to read some of this. Alora P. from Norco. So nice to have a great facility here in the IE. Can't wait for more horse shows to start. Yes, the $8 parking fee is a bit annoying, but it's comparable to other places we've been. But it's a new complex. Will be nice to see how it continues to grow and develop. Someone from Patrick A. from Anaheim. The fields were really well taken care of. Bermuda grass, some of the nicer natural grass fields that we've played on. Make sure you know where your field number is so you know where to park. With that being said, though, got to get up with the times. Evan M. from Corona. The park is very maintained and clean. From what I've heard, it is fairly new. It does cost $8 to park, but on the bright side, they take cash and credit, so you don't have to worry about not having money on you. It's a very large park. I went yesterday and was told to download the Silver Lakes Park app on the App Store, and I'm glad I did it. It made it easy to find my field and where the bathrooms are. All in all, it's a very nice park, and the employees are very helpful and polite. Definitely looking forward to see how it's like in the future. Bakersfield, I think this is a coach. Absolutely a hail in or an inhale. Absolutely beautiful complex. I think 4 top-notch turf fields with lights, then another, well, he said something, load of fields besides those. Parking is sufficient and paved. Entering and leaving the complex wasn't an issue. The place was clean, staff was friendly. Our kids usually hate turf fields, but there was something different about these turf fields. The ball didn't bounce like it was on concrete, and it wasn't overly fast. The turf played very close to natural turf. This community should be happy to have such a top-notch class facility. I don't mind traveling to this place to play. Please keep up the good work. That's what's coming from people that are not from Norco, that are coming into Norco. So I urge you, please support what's being asked.
Thank you, Rosa.
Thank you.
That concludes public comments.
Before we take this to a vote, I'm very proud of this project, and RJ has kept his word to us. It's been a real battle. Truth is, had we kept to the straight statutes of the contract, when we thought it would be built, it would have washed away. But what's most important to me, and maybe only RJ is going to understand this, we're not going to be La Habra, we're going to be Anaheim. In other words, La Habra turned down Disneyland. We're going to be Anaheim. We accepted this project. So I make a motion to approve unless there's other comments.
Newton. Hoffman. Grunmeyer. Hannah. Bash.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on. Greg, your next item, please.
It was just that, the only reason I pulled H because it went with G. Did it not? Yeah. Yeah.
On here. Find mine. So do you have a motion to approve, that? Did you want to, or do I have a motion on H? Second. Okay, give it to him.
Newton. Hoffman.
Yes.
Grunmeyer.
Yes.
Hannah. Bash.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I'm excited. What can I tell you? A resident has pulled I.
Yes, that is from Pat Overstreet.
Kaiser wants me to walk 10,000 steps a day. I'm working on it tonight. Regarding and the mention of urban forest, I get about 3 to 5 gentlemen at my door a month, with little cards and chainsaws that claim to be tree trimmers. And I get really upset when I notice driving around town that sometimes they trim the trees way over 50%. So I'm hoping the West Coast arborists truly love trees, and I'm all for tree huggers, and trim them with care. And I hope the city has guidelines for them, because we're never going to have an urban forest like Upland or Redlands if we keep cutting the trees at 50% every single year. They're never allowed to get any growth. Steve King and I have planted so many trees back in the days when we did that, and because they weren't watered, they're just dead sticks now. So I'm hoping we can stop that. I also wish we could get the commercial entities in town. I don't know who pays for those tree trimmings, but if we could get them to stop chopping more than 50% in the parking lots, it would be nice to have an urban forest covering the parking lots. And once 110 in Norco, you've got some shade to park in. And I think the best example is Kaiser Hospital in Riverside. The trees that they've allowed to grow, they have to be maintained and cut for the wind and all that other stuff. But I mean, they have the parking lots that are wonderfully shaded, so when it's really hot, you've got a place to park. There was also a commercial entity right across the street from Stater Brothers that planted those god-awful Queen Anne palms, which you know I dearly hate, at his own expense, and then he pulled out the city London planes. And that was very upsetting. I'm assuming they figured, well, you couldn't see the businesses. Once the trees were gone, yes, you could see the commercial properties, but there's ways of trimming the trees so that you can see through them. And I encourage the use of the Canary Island pines along Hamner. That's a tourist corridor. We want to spiff this, the city up with our crown jewel of Silver Lakes and hopefully the hotel someday. We want it to look, Western, and to me a Western tree is a Canary Island pine. The pine's more Western than anything else. So I don't know what we can do about having the commercial properties. That's part of their landscaping percentage that they're supposed to maintain. So I'm hoping we can stop the 50% chop that's going on. Thank you.
You fill out what's that? You got to fill out a card. Yeah, if the city clerk says okay. It's very nice to see you.
Me too.
Yeah.
Norva Williams, 1615 Temescal. To piggyback on that, I have 85 eucalyptus trees on my property. And for years, for probably the first 25 years that I lived here, Edison came every 3 years and would chop off my trees. They're coming every 6 months now. So at first, I figured they knew what they were doing. But what happened is now I have really fat eucalyptus trees that are coming way over in my yard, and they're naked up top. So now I talked to Beth Groves, and I said, do I have to allow them to come in? And she said, no. So essentially what I'm doing when they come in, I flat tell them no. They cannot, even though it's Edison, and if something were to happen, I would have to accept the responsibility. But they're like 15 feet from the power line. It's like ludicrous to even look at it. So it's just a big annoyance. I don't know if we can talk to Edison or, if that's part of the issue that Pat's discussing. But Edison is way overdoing trimming the trees. The people in my neighborhood can attest to that. I can attest to that. Please feel free to come and check out my fat eucalyptus trees. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes comments.
Actually, Greg Newton and I would discuss this several months ago, and then I met with the Edison representative with Andy, and they're telling us that essentially they get to do what they want underneath those power lines. It's an issue of safety, and it just drove us crazy because they look like flat pancakes on top. So what's happening is Terry Prokowski, and I don't know what the status is on it, but they're working on something to create more of an idea of an urban forest and begin to plant trees that grow to a certain height. We may not have that issue, but I agree with you. There's whole streets, they just go down and they just destroy the trees. But Edison takes the position that they have the right to do it, even though in some cases, like on Pedley, the trees were there before the power lines. So anyway, Do I have a motion? Anybody, any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, this, under the residents, this came about because of safety.
Yeah.
And basically this is residential safety. Other major cities throughout Southern California are having problems with older trees, and it really excelled because of the drought over the last couple of years. We have trees dying, big limbs falling. Chad can tell what the improper trees do to your streets and your roads. This is what this is finally getting at. This is not just us, it is fixing it. And yes, Southern California Edison has been tree topping for years, and unfortunately the state allowed them to be the only, and if Chad correctly, the only public agency in the state that's allowed to top a tree. If you're an arborist, you do not top a tree. But Southern California Edison has been doing it. Hopefully this will curtail this. This is what this is all about, this urban forest. This is not just unique to us. This is going throughout several areas in California. So we need to fix this. Thank you. With that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Newton. Hoffman.
Yes.
Grunmeyer. Hannah. Pash.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to item 4, public comments. Anybody wishing to speak has 3 minutes. If you have a card, do we have any cards?
I have one card. Pat Overstreet.
You really are trying to. There's a meter you can put in your shoe that'll log the 10,000 steps.
I know. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Well, I would just like to take this opportunity to remind you we now have our official flyers. Our 10th annual ranch tour is up and ready to go on May 14th. From 11 to 4. I've given you each a formal invitation. I put a few out on the table. You can go to friendsofnorcohills.com and download the flyer. We've got 7 great ranches. Drill team at No Drama Ranch, which is rehabilitative riding, which is just amazing. Cavalry display will be at one of the ranches that is remodeled. One of the dumps to Darling that I like to call. It took an absolute mess and cleaned it up, and it's just beautiful now. Carriage rides throughout the day, pony rides at Refreshment Ranch. It's, I think, the least expensive family entertainment. It's still $10 an adult, 12 and under free. It really showcases our lifestyle, and it's great to share. In the past, we've had visitors from San Diego County and as far north as Ventura. They can't believe the way we get to live in this town. It's just wonderful to share. And I'm Refreshment Ranch. With your $10 ticket, you get a hot dog and drinks at my house. So I'm encouraging everybody to attend. Thank you.
That concludes public comments.
Um,
On public comments. Okay.
Your call, Cheryl.
Okay. Yes. Susan Smith.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and our council. My name is Susan Smith, and this is Betty Bowman. And we are partners in a horse show management called Parkside Horse Shows. And we are putting on the horse shows at R.J. Brandis' Silver Lakes and Norco Silver Lakes.
We know.
And yes, you come to our horse shows, and we're really pleased. This year, we have moved into a 2-day, 2-arena format. We started with Silver Lakes in December at 2015 with our Silver Bells at Silver Lakes, and we had a successful horse show, a wonderful turnout. And we just wanted to let you know that we are so excited to be a part of Silver Lakes. We are anticipating growth. We've had so much popularity in our horse shows. Our last horse show in April, we had approximately 60 horses. We have our next show June 3rd and 4th. These are 100-jumper open horse shows. And we're going to be anticipating closer to 80 horses. Our goal as we move through the show year, we've got 5 shows in our series, is to make our way from up to 100 to 150 horses. These people are coming to Norco. They're eating at our restaurants. They're eating at Silver Lakes. They're staying at the hotels. We're putting up our officials at our hotels. And we are just seeing so much. I can't even tell you how much positive comments that's on the social media. I know I haven't seen any of the negative social media, but I can tell you we've seen a lot of positive social media. The people are so excited that Norco is putting on these 100 jumper horse shows. We're hosting these horse shows to the Inland Empire 100 jumper circuit, to the Orange County Horse Show Association, and the Greater San Diego 100 Jumper Association. And like I say, our growth is coming. People have had nothing but positive comments. They're excited to have a new venue to show at, something new and exciting for them. You want to?
And I'll just second that. I'm the one that handles most of the social media. And after our first show, it was nothing but great comments about the facility. As you know, with the way things are now, equestrian centers are going by the wayside at an extraordinary rate. To have one come into Norco with this kind of quality it's amazing, and we are so fortunate that RJ has given us this opportunity to grow into this facility, and we can't wait to see what phase 2 brings for us and for the facility, because no matter what kind of horseman you are, whether you do Western, English, dressage, whatever, you need those facilities to keep the hobby going. And I'm just glad to be a part of it, and I can't wait to see what the other phases have in store. So
the equestrian facility is phenomenal. The arenas are phenomenal, the footing, and we've just had positive feedback on everything equestrian center related.
And for us, we also have a barn in town that it's great that we can actually take, Sue can take her students 5 minutes down the road and not have to travel, to LA, to San Diego. We can do it 5 minutes, and we get more people there supporting the venue. So
Thank you very much for your comments. Thank you.
No more speakers.
Now closing public comments, going to public hearings. 5A, ordering abatement of weeds on vacant lots.
Honorable Mayor, council members, the proposed resolution orders the abatement of weeds and authorizes the fire department's weed abatement contractor to begin abating weeds on vacant properties whose owners did not comply with the notice to abate spring weeds. With that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions for the chief?
I do. Chief?
Yes, sir.
Going down on the list, that how are these vacant lots determined? That this all vacant property in Norco, or are these people that you've sent notices to that have ignored the fact to abate weeds?
Correct. The ones, I'm not sure which list you have in front of you. Is it 8 pages long?
Could be. Exhibit A.
So that's the 121 parcels approximately that the notice went out to in the beginning of March.
Okay. So when I look at it, I mean, there is the list of the usual suspects that I think use our weed abatement services is cheaper than
Correct.
anyone else. We can address that later. But some of these properties that jumped out to me were Dave Gonzalez's property at 6 in Corona, where there are no weeds on it. Dr. Wan's property at 6th and Temescal that's under construction. So I don't understand why we'd be sending somebody out there to abate his weeds.
So the list that you have is of what we had on record as vacant lots that everyone was noticed. The inspections were completed the week of as of April 23rd. There are 40 parcels that are not in compliance.
Okay, out of all of these.
Out of all of them. Now that changes day to day, so that's as of April 23rd, but every day people continue to abate.
This resolution is just an opportunity for all of the listed property, anybody who's listed property owners to come to the council and object. If they don't object and you approve it, then there's an obligation for all of them to have abated by then. If they've abated, the contractor doesn't do anything, they'll get any charge. And then the next step will be after CAL FIRE has done the abatement, those that they abated, you'll get another list back and you'll confirm the assessments.
Now, one of the worst is in the audience, but I'm not going to speak for her. So that answers my questions. Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, Chief, and I'm going to piggyback off of Greg's thing. So if the weeds, this was all done by a private contractor, right? Or did somebody from your office go out there and do these inspections?
The inspections are done by our fire department inspector that's out of the Hillside Station.
Okay. So, and if the weeds been cleared or abated, does the property owner still get charged? I mean, as I said here, okay, I just want to make sure out of that whole 8 pages of lists and the one property, and like Councilman Newton said, that Temescal and 6th, that hospital's been under construction since October or November of last year. There's been construction. I just don't understand. That's what struck me is he was inspected. How could they find weeds when it's totally been under construction and that kind of a thing? So that's what I'm trying to get at. You see what I'm saying? Is that wouldn't have made sense to abate a property like that or have them on the list. But that's why I just want clarification. They're not going to get billed then.
No, because and when we come back to actually, like the city attorney said, when we come back to say this is the 20 properties that didn't abate, if Warren Brothers was to show up there tomorrow and they're abated, he makes a note and keeps driving.
Okay, all right.
Nothing
Thank you.
occurs.
Thank you.
Robin?
Scott, what day did you say they did the inspections for? 20 something? Sorry, I didn't get it.
As of April 23rd, there were 40
23rd.
parcels.
Okay, and there were 40 parcels.
And that may be less today because it's
Right.
now May 4th.
So if you guys will note on the list, it says it was revised 414 is what's on our paperwork. So I guess the only thing for me would be this went out in the staff report and it was also made public. So the concern is if you're the resident, you're, what the heck am I doing on this list that's going to council on Wednesday night for whatever? So I think it's just a miscommunication of, because this is kind of a master list of just all vacant properties in Norco, correct?
Correct. That is not the list of properties that are still in violation.
Right. If you had to guess from this entire list, like what's your percentage of people that just say, we're going to let the city abate this so I don't have to drive out from Orange County or wherever I'm at to take care of my property?
Of the 40 that we're saying are left, 20.
20. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Irwin?
Yeah, on Valley View between 5th and 6th, kind of catty-cornered across from the Public Works yard, there's about a 5-acre parcel in there, and it didn't make the list. And I know the weeds have been growing all winter since the little rains we have. The tumbleweeds are a big problem, especially to the people that butts up to them off of 5th Street. So I don't know if it's you or Steve. How do you get that? The last time they went in there and did it, some guys went in there and cleared the whole thing by hand. And then we've had several little rains since then that have grown up to look like a small Christmas tree farm over there. So
You said it was Valley View between 5th and 6th?
yeah,
And there's no improvements on it at all?
none.
Just a vacant lot?
Just
I'll
about.
follow up tomorrow with Edgar and make sure if it's not on the list that he goes and inspects it.
Yeah, because
Notice.
I think Steve and them notified them last year, and they come in and cut it. But then the last time they did it by hand. It took 2 guys several weeks, but it when it gets up and the wind starts blowing, then it brings the tumbleweeds into the backyards of those people along 5th Street over there.
Understand?
Thank you.
Do we have any cards? I'm sorry, Greg.
Just to help clarify that to Steve, that was the 4 or 5 acres that Lewis was going to develop into those 4 or 5 homes.
Any cards on this?
Yes, one card. Sunday Barreto.
Is the Berettos, are they on the list?
Hello again. Yes, we are on the list. I don't understand why we're on the list. We have 0 weeds on our property. When we purchased this property a year ago, We were strapped with a bill from the city a few months after our purchase for the weed abatement bill from the previous owner. My husband, being who he is, said, I'll just pay it, we'll be done with it. And then we find out, I get three or four phone calls and emails that I'm on this weed abatement list. And we all know I'm an upstanding, law-abiding citizen. And this is a bit embarrassing, I must admit. So I'm confused at the confusion of a vacant property list versus a weed abatement list. And it's a little insulting, and especially since I paid that bill that I didn't even owe on a weed abatement from a previous owner. So I don't agree with the way that we're doing at least this list, and I think we need to revise the system and come up with a better system. I understand we have a weed problem. I did take some photos. I didn't bring them, but I have a few areas in the city that the city owns that don't look so swell. And so I'm not going to ever bring that up. I'm joking. I'm tongue-in-cheek right now. But honestly, if you go by my property, it's right next to 2248. It's the vacant lot next to Norco Auto Tech. There's no weeds there. And so I just don't understand how we made the list. And I'm hoping it's an oversight. It's a little embarrassing, but I can't agree with the way we're doing this list and did it. So thank you.
Assuming we'll probably revisit how we do the list. So from the city manager, he's going to take lesson learned. Any other comments? Do we make a motion to approve this? I make a motion to approve. Need a second?
Put under discussion.
Yes, under discussion.
Can we remove the Barrettos from the list?
Yes, all right. Then I make a substitute motion that we remove the Barrettos from the list. It's already removed. The city manager has already removed it.
Don says no.
No, I'm not saying no.
Oh, I thought you said no.
You can go. You can do that.
Newton, Hoffman, Grunmeyer, Hannah, Bash.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to 5B, resolution approving, authorizing, and directing execution of the joint exercise of powers agreement relating to the California Public Finance Authority and other matters pertaining thereto. City manager.
Yes. Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, this is a staff recommendation for the City Council to approve a resolution number 2016-22. This resolution will approve the city's participation in California Public Finance Authority and as well as approve the issuance of bonds by California Finance Authority on behalf of Balboa Management for improvements at Silver Lakes. Balboa Management is currently seeking additional funding to do additional improvements at the Silver Lakes property. That financing is being pursued through California Public Finance Authority, which is a joint exercise of powers authority. In order to meet state law and the policy requirements of Cal PFA, they require that the city must first of all become a member of Cal PFA in order to approve the issuance of bonds on behalf of Balboa Management. Currently, the city is not a member of Cal PFA, and therefore the city must become a member in order to authorize the issuance of bonds. Section 7.1 of the ground lease agreement between the city of Norco and Balboa provides that the right to Balboa to secure additional financing as necessary to support the improvements on the Silver Lakes property. And the city also is required to reasonably cooperate with Balboa in procuring the necessary financing that is required to do the necessary improvements at the Silver Lakes property. It is one of the policies of the of Cal PFA that the city approved the issuance of bonds And it is to be noted that these bonds, when issued by CalPFA on behalf of Balboa, limited obligations of CalPFA. They are not the obligations of the city and are only payable solely from revenues that are generated from the Civil X project. Essentially, the city owns no liability with respect to the repayment of the bonds to be issued by CalPFA, and staff is recommending that the city council adopt this resolution to approve the city's participation in the CalPFA JPA, as well as the authorization to issue bonds series number 2016 for improvements on the Silver Lakes project. It is to be noted that the CalPFL board has already acted on this recommendation in anticipation of the city's participation in the JPA. With that, I'll conclude my comments and take any questions. In addition, I'd like to mention that a representative from CalPFA is here and would answer any questions you might have with respect to the JPA itself. Additionally, the bond counsel who is processing this bond transaction on behalf of Balboa is also here to answer any questions that the city council or members of the audience might have.
Council, any questions, comments? Great.
Thanks. Just a couple, Andy, on what's the bond amount that's being asked?
The information I have is based on the action taken by CalPFL board. Is the bond amount is not to exceed $6 million.
Okay. At interest rate? Okay. So when they're sold, then that interest rate is determined, and these are taxable?
This will be
And
taxable bonds, correct.
Okay. On the first page, it's just grammar, but I just want to make sure that under the summary, first page, second page, it says, currently the city is not a member of CalPFA and thus must become a member before it can authorize the issuance of the bonds. The word it, I want to make sure it means not us. Okay?
Means does mean us.
It does mean us?
Because the resolution, the city authorizes the issuance of the bonds for a project within its jurisdiction, but we don't issue them. Allow CalPFA to do it.
So we're authorizing it once we become a member, or is there any other actions that we have to take?
Let's hypothetical.
Okay.
There is no project right now. We become a member of the PFA anyway.
Right.
When there is a project, and it might be other than Balboa, it could be anything in the city.
Mm-hmm.
That has to come to you for you to authorize PFA to proceed with the project.
Okay.
Even though we don't have any liability.
Okay. Then just want to make sure we don't give up any lien position.
No, in fact, I haven't looked into bond documents, but from the comments that Andy's made, it sounds as if there's revenue bonds in any case, and so that the Social Security is revenue generated by the project.
Okay, so I'm making this assumption. We have first position on, let's say, the repayment of the $6 million that was authorized. Okay, if these bonds go south or whatever, they're not repaid, they can't come back on us.
I haven't reviewed the bond documents, so I don't know what the relationship is between Balboa and. But the answer is generally yes. That no, they can't come back on us for no responsibility. We have no liability for repayment. The sole source of repayment is revenues generated. If RJ doesn't produce revenues sufficient so that he defaults on the bonds, he's probably going to breach the lease, and we're going to be in a gigantic mess. But our position in all that isn't affected by his failure to generate enough revenue to make payments to
But
They don't-
what
they don't come
concerns me, you said you didn't review it. Is this an assumption that you're stating, or is it?
Well, I'm looking at bond counsel.
Let's bring the bond counsel forward. Do you mind?
And their revenue, and the answer is under no circumstances. I mean, because you haven't approved anything, we don't take our position can't be affected unless we agree to have it affected.
I guess I'll ask simply, like in your report of your action items, that part of the use of the $6 million was to install a freeway sign. Okay, that was in their report. Can you lay claim on the freeway sign?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Okay. What he's asking is, do you have any? Does the PFA, assuming that RJ defaults on the debt service repayment, does the PFA have any lien or recourse against the improvement which was constructed?
There's a leasehold mortgage that secures the bonds. And so the bondholders have a lien on the improvements pursuant to the leasehold mortgage. Your ground lease is prior to that leasehold mortgage. So to answer your original question, your ground lease is of record prior to any other liens, and so you have a prior position than the bondholders.
But using the sign example, it's like the leaseholds that the city has done in the past, the COPs, where theoretically the streets were the security, that theoretically bondholders had a lien on city streets, but there's no potential for recourse.
Right.
In this case, I mean, in theory, I guess that they would have a lien on the improvement which was constructed, the freeway sign.
Subject to the ground lease.
Subject to the ground lease. But I mean, you don't pick it up and remove it. And if they're defaulted, probably the freeway sign is going to be somewhat irrelevant since they are also presumably not operating.
As an example, John. I mean,
but that's a good example.
The notion would be, if there is financial difficulty, the first and foremost that the bondholders want to do is continue the ground lease payments so that they have access to the property and can continue operating the improvements. That's how a leasehold mortgage would work.
The bondholders would become the operator?
The bondholders would have, if there's an event of default, and that's what you're suggesting.
Sure.
If there's an event of default, the bondholders have the ability to direct the operation of the facility subject to the provisions of the ground lease and all the other city.
Yeah, the ground lease never goes away.
Never goes away.
Right. So you could end up with bondholders as partners as operators. Is that
you
subject to the ground lease?
Yeah. Again, you could well, to the extent that they're partners, we could theoretically end up with an entity other than Balboa who, on behalf of the bondholders, was operating the facility subject to all the requirements of the ground lease,
which would include the $87,000.
Yeah, it means everything. Right. And frankly, this is speculation, of course. The worst case scenario in reality is that if RJ can't produce sufficient revenues, nobody can produce sufficient revenues, and so the city gets back its property with the improvements.
I actually don't have any heartburn with this issuance. Believe me, it's just that I want to make sure that our butts are covered and that we don't have to develop any type of exit plan.
To quote
any smart investor would do.
Right.
Okay.
And first and foremost, as the city attorney has indicated, the city has no obligation with respect to the debt issued by the Cal PFA or the debt that had been issued by the CSCDA. The action item tonight is to satisfy the Joint Powers Authority provisions that you need to be a member of the issuers club. Not only for this issuance, but it also would serve the purpose that if a obligor wanted to use the Cal PFA for future financings of projects within this jurisdiction, they can do so and know that they'll come to you. You're a member of the club, and you're ready to go. So, no liability to the city, no liability to the city by joining the Cal PFA. There's no dues.
It's a free membership to your club.
That's right. That's right. I don't think you get any certificate suitable for framing. Unfortunately, I can't offer that for you tonight. But it does facilitate future financings through this issuer for sure. And it does the financing does not at all impact the ground lease, the development agreement, all of the shared use agreements. All of those are foundational to this financing as well as the 2015 financing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
To quote Jeff Cahan, I'm glad you
Thank
asked
you,
the
sir.
questions.
Well, I could also quote W.C. Fields, John, about clubs, okay?
Actually, that was Groucho Marx. Never join a club
All
or
right.
be a member of.
All right, gentlemen. I got to drive to La Quinta tonight. Okay. And the gentleman probably can answer this. I'm looking at this, and when I was reading it there, this JPA was formed just last year. And so now you have 8. That's why I was interested, because there's currently 8 local governments. So this is brand new. I know JPAs have been around for years. So this is a whole new program. I'm just amazed at how we always find agencies get developed to come along, and they find new sources of money. So it's how they do this. So that's what I see. It started out of Kings County and the Housing Authority of Kings County. So do you have other agencies in the state that belong to this? If you didn't know which ones they are, there's 8 of them.
I don't have them in front of me to date, but certainly I can make that available.
Okay, these are other cities and counties then?
Yes. Current members.
Compton.
Current members, Marin County, Town of Los Altos Hills, Kings County, Housing Authority of Kings County, City of Santa Ana, City of Compton, City of Inglewood, City of Stockton, Costa County, Alameda County, San Diego County, City of Fresno, and the City of Palmdale are expected to join.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate that. So this is all essentially you filling a void, and I'm just trying to understand where the other public authorities and the government authorities are not here, right? Even though it's a government authority, okay. I now know more about Cal PFA. Thank you.
Robin?
I just had one question. Sorry. Can you explain to me or kind of clarify the process in which this happened? Only because the way I look at it, it seems like it's going backwards. Like the process started with you instead of somebody approaching us and saying, hey, why don't you guys join this so then we can do this? So is that normally how it happens and I'm just looking at it from the wrong perspective, or is this a unique situation? How does all that work?
No, it's not a unique situation ultimately.
Okay. So do people usually come to you first and then they go back to the jurisdiction and say, hey, can you guys join this group so we can get some bonds?
It can work both ways.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Irwin? I have nothing. Do we have cards?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Lance Gregory.
Hello, Lance.
Mr. Mayor, council staff. I really had no plan on speaking tonight, but I felt it necessary since there was some question about my motives when I inquired about the CALFA bond. In doing my research, just like I did last year when we went through this with the CSCDA bond, something didn't make sense to me and raised a flag. I read the staff report, and then I looked up CALFA just to get familiar with who they are. When I looked at their agenda on April 26, I noticed item number 3, and it showed the bond issuance for Balboa. So that confused me. And knowing that in the staff report we weren't a member yet, not being a bond expert or anything like that, and don't claim to be, I was confused because it stipulates into the California state law and their policy requirements, as you read earlier, we needed to be a member. So, of course, I was confused about that. So I reached out to all council members, city manager and deputy manager, and expressed my concerns. I also emailed Chair Doug Verboon of CALFA and asked him if this item had been approved. And he said yes. That was a confirmation I got. So this is where the confusion came in. And so I wanted to ensure that we don't get any more mistakes that would lead to any sort of fines, technicalities, or anything else that would give the opportunity for somebody to start screaming wrongdoing, corruption, anything else in the town. I just want to make sure we do stuff open and transparent. So as I said, I contacted Mr. Okoro. He told me that stipulations for the resolution, council had to do two things: approve this as a member and approve the issuance of the bonds. I was also informed that CALFA chose to act first and facilitate the process, and with the understanding the action is contingent upon the City of Norco approval recommended action. The staff report made no mention of contingencies, nor did CALFA mention that when they confirmed that to me as well. So with my communications with staff, it cleared it up for me. Now, personally, I really don't care where Mr. Brandis gets his funding from, as long as the city's not on the hook for it. I feel it's important for residents to have confidence in the city, and the proper protocol is followed with no errors. So I look forward to Silver Lakes being completed and fully operational, and our local businesses reaping the rewards. Thank you.
Jeff Kahan.
Hello.
Hello again. I want to commend Councilman Newton. I appreciate sincerely the due diligence, the questions to make sure that we are absolutely not in any way on the hook, responsible, indebted, fill in the thesaurus list of words, that we are simply approving for them to issue the bonds because the project simply is in our boundaries, and to make sure that there's no way we're going to, as taxpayers, be liable for any problems. Of course, I don't foresee them, but I appreciate you making sure that we are very absolutely clear and not on the hook. So I appreciate that sincerely. Real quick comment as a reply. I'm looking at the staff report, and I do see right here where it says, therefore, it is a requirement for the city to approve the issuance of bonds before CalPFA can issue the bonds. So it's pretty straightforward. It says right there that. So I understand, being a new agency, that the process might be kind of new, but I don't really see there's an issue. They simply pre-approved it. If for some reason they didn't want to approve it, then there's no point in having this even on the agenda. So knowing that they're willing to move forward, we now are just simply saying, hey, let's be a part of the club for no dues, right? And let's go ahead and approve that RJ can move forward with phase 2. We've already invested so much time and money getting to where we are. Phase 1 isn't even done yet, but we certainly want to see the success of the project. We certainly want to see phase 2 move forward as soon as phase 1 is done. As any business person knows, you have to spend money to make money, and the benefit, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but the benefit of this project to the city, you almost can't even measure it. I mean, we know that we need more hotels. We know that we have restaurants running out of food because we've got out-of-towners coming in and spending their tax dollars here. And that's so amazing that our little town was able to get this world-class facility built here. So clearly, there's no reason why we would want to stand in the way of this. And as Andy mentioned in the ground lease 7.1, we are obligated to do everything we can to cooperate. So clearly, if all we have to do is join this group, which can benefit other projects down the road, but clearly we have to join it right away so that we can then give our approval on Resolution 2016-22 so that CalPFA can go ahead and move forward with the issuance of the bonds. I really don't see, especially after the grilling, to make sure that we're clearly and cleanly not on the hook for any of this. It's almost kind of a no-brainer, really. We all want to see this project succeed because the future of the town, we will benefit so greatly from such an amazing project. So clearly, I would recommend that you approve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Lou Palsa.
I need a full 3 minutes on this, okay. Good evening again. I have another letter to read you here, so I'll get right to it. I would like to remind the council that there was a federal deed restriction placed on the Soar Lakes property because numerous elderly people were swindled out of their life savings by TLC investments. The deed restriction was placed on the property because of what happened to these elderly people. It was so egregious that the receiver did not want anyone profiting off the land, and a federal judge agreed, thereby placing a deed restriction on the property. Although the important deed restriction was in place, City Attorney John Harper filed a motion for interpretation, modification, and/or elimination of the deed restriction with the United States District Court, October 12, 04. On November 1st, 04, District Judge David O'Carter denied Mr. Harper's motion, stating the receiver in this action sold a property at issue on the condition that the deed contained a covenant running with the land, restricting the use of the property to park and open space purposes, which was intended for the benefit of the public. The covenant clearly precludes the mixed-use project proposed by the City of Norco. Thus, court will not construe the covenant as permitting a mixed-use project. Given that the beneficiaries of the covenant included members of the public, the court will not eliminate the covenant. The motion was denied. Furthermore, the deed restriction states the property shall not be used for commercial purposes other than for common park-related activities such as refreshment stands, horse boarding stables, and other park-related concession operations to serve park users, which are commonly granted by cities in California. The staff report by the California Public Finance Authority specifically states the funding is in part for a restaurant and retail building, both of which violate the deed restriction. Therefore, approval of this resolution will be directly and willfully violating the federal deed restriction. In researching the court case validating the proposed project by Superior Court Judge Craig Reamer, it was discovered that what was presented to the court was the 2008 master site plan and proposal rather than the 2011 site plan and proposal. Therefore, the judge based his validation on a project that did not preclude the new construction nor retail. This, we'll call it an error by the city attorney, must be addressed and brought back before the court before anything else is approved or allowed to happen on the property. The city's error has placed millions of taxpayers' dollars already spent in this project in jeopardy, and approving this resolution will not only violate the federal court order, but put the investors' money at risk as well. If the council chooses to turn a blind eye to this information, now that it's been presented on the record, the residents will have no further choice than to bring this information before the court themselves. Sincerely, Lisa Campbell.
Thank you, sir.
John? Oh, just factually incorrect. As to the first part, the bringing a motion in federal court in an attempt to have the court authorize the development of a mixed-use facility, which was as a result of a former council wanting to build a Walmart and do some other things on that property. We brought the motion, hoping for the best, and economy was tough, and you needed sales tax revenue. The court said no. Was no great shock, and the existing or pre-existing to the motion deed restriction stayed in place. The validation action filed in Superior Court in Riverside County validated that the uses listed in all the documents approved by the city uses were consistent with the use of the property pursuant to the deed restriction. There's no errors. The court didn't say that you have a map here and that this has got to go here and this has got to go here according to the map. What the court did was validate the uses, and the uses that have been proposed by Balboa from the outset are consistent with the approvals that the city made originally in 2011. That's pretty much it.
At Overstreet?
gonna have to sleep tonight after all this walking.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thank you, Mr. Harper, for that clarification. And my admonition to you is join the club.
Linda Dixon.
She wants to walk.
You know, it almost takes words away from me when I hear such misinformation and blatant misinformation that they try to stuff down the throats of our public. But thank God, the grand majority of our citizens of Norco are smarter than that. And the 5 people that buy it, I'm sorry. This is actually wonderful, wonderful news for our community. I think that, it's no liability to our city, no cost to our city. We need to support Phase 2. Phase 2 is going to be absolutely amazing. We still have a few months to go in Phase 1. This is a businessman. There's nothing out of the ordinary in doing this procedure. Absolutely not. I don't know how governments actually work to try to get their money in order if you're trying to borrow from an outside entity. But as a business person, and we were in business ourselves for 47 years, this isn't unusual. But this is wonderful news for our community. I think that we need to join the club. And I think that this Phase 2 needs to continue because actually the bottom line is Silver Lakes is going to be the savior of our equestrian community. There's so many of these communities that are going down the tubes in Southern California. There's so very few left. And he's helping to promote that. Our added tax dollars are going to assist us. It's always a fight in our community to retain what we have. And I don't think that we need to do anything that would take away from that. This is going to enhance it. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Sunday Barreto.
Hello.
Hello again.
I would say definitely approve this. We aren't on the hook for the money. Important. How he gets his money, I don't care. But talking about Silver Lakes in general, a lot of people, I understand the equestrian part of it, but I'm not that guy or gal who's opposed to the sports park aspect of it either. You go by there and you see kids out there with their families playing. They have a place to go, a quality place to go, but it doesn't end there. Taking a tour of the facility, that place has potential and potential for Norco. Not only does it bring right now about 20,000 people on a given weekend into our community, it's such a positive place. And to touch on the mixed use versus the park and open space, I cannot personally think of a better use and a better open space and park than we have in Silver Lakes that actually brings an opportunity, like most parks don't, to provide people coming to our town and spending their money in our town and getting our name on the map. So I disagree that that's not a park and a deed restriction. It is very much a park. It's a sports park. It's an equestrian park. It is a wonderful facility for this town. We are lucky to have it. I definitely say I'm like everyone else, join the club. And also, if that allows me money to use at a future date to weed, I don't know if that's a possibility. I'm definitely for it. So.
Sue Bacon.
Sue had to leave.
Okay.
But she's in agreement.
RJ Brandis.
I just have one comment.
I'd like to know why Lisa doesn't come and read her own documents. I mean, I'd like to see this woman come up here. I've offered her at every event here to come discuss this with us, and she's never done that. I'm not sure why she has to send someone else to read her documents. So why don't you ask her to come here and deliver her statements to the public and stand up for who she is? All right?
Corinne Holder. Joanne Akins.
No, it's down. It's good. Good evening, all.
A new face.
Usually I just sit quietly and listen, and I have been listening to all the discussion tonight on this item. And thank you for the explanation from the gentleman on the Cal PFA. That was interesting to hear. So I don't see that it's going to give us any heartburn to join the club. And I do urge support of this resolution. I'm in support of it. We need to keep going with this project. It's got to get finished. We're way too long into it now to not finish it at this point. Because maybe we have other things that we can see coming down the pike in a year or two. Who knows? This could just open up a whole new avenue for us. And on a side note, with my job, which is outside of the city of Norco, I have run into several people who have told me how thrilled they are that their kids are playing lacrosse at Silver Lakes, playing soccer at Silver Lakes. What a beautiful facility it is. And so, please, I urge you to approve this resolution.
Thanks, Joanne.
Rosa Zuniga Green.
Hello, it's me again. Hi. I would just like to, first of all, thank all of you for all the hard work that you do, staff. And I would also like to ask that you support this resolution, get it passed, and I say ditto to all the other comments that everybody else has made. But I'm wondering, did I just hear the threat of a lawsuit? And is this going, that threat of a lawsuit, is it going to cost us more money? And if someone really loves the community of Norco, why would you keep doing something like this? And I'm with RJ Brandis. You know, if you're going to come and you're going to have something to say, then you need to stand up here in front of the public and you need to be able to say it, and don't send a messenger. Thank you.
That concludes my comments.
John Harper.
One comment. First, I'm going to make it, quoting Sonny, a tongue-in-cheek comment. The answer to the question is we'd rather have Lou.
He's a veteran.
That's right. It's a fellow veteran.
It's a veteran.
The only additional comment, and to some extent, it's not particularly relevant to the decision you're making now, but it's relevant to the comments, particularly the Lisa Campbell comment. I think there's some misunderstanding about what the validation action accomplished. The validation action, when the judge imposed the deed restriction, the definition of the uses was contained essentially in half a sentence. And the purpose of the validation action was to give some assurance that the proposed uses were consistent with that half a sentence definition. The and here, but this is Exhibit F, which is the list of permitted uses. You can see there are quite a few of them. But let's pretend that there was never any validation action. That didn't change the ability for this project to meet the definition imposed by the deed restriction. I don't know what litigation would do. Let's say that in the worst case scenario, litigation, God forbid, very expensive litigation, by the way, but litigation would set aside the validation action. Wouldn't set aside the project. The project's uses are consistent with the definition in the deed restriction. Just there wouldn't be validation action. I mean, it really doesn't accomplish anything. The validation action accomplished something for Mr. Brandis and Balboa and the financing of the project because it gave them some comfort level that both the city supported these uses and that court was saying that those uses were consistent. But other than that, it doesn't change what the deed restriction is. Like I said, we want actually it was Harvey that wanted to build a Walmart out there. You still couldn't build a Walmart out there. That's pretty clear. But the other things, the permitted uses, are consistent with what the court had in mind. I mean, it mentioned equestrian and other types of facility uses. Anyway, that all I'm saying is that maybe for Lisa's purposes and any thoughts about litigation, that even if the validation action had never occurred, it wouldn't have changed anything about this project.
Any other comments from council? Berwin?
Yeah, I'll call for the question.
Motion to approve?
Newton, Hoffman, Grunmeyer, Hannah, Bash.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to 6, council, city manager, and staff communications. Anything, Eric?
I thought it only fitting, since you mentioned Deputy James Evans and the scholarship, I give a little background. Deputy James Bernard Evans, Medal of Honor recipient from the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, badge number 794, ID 644, date of birth February 3rd, 1941, date of death May 9th, 1980. Deputy James Evans was employed with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department for 4.5 years. He was hired on September 2nd, 1975, and assigned to Riverside Patrol. Deputy Evans began his law enforcement career in 1974 as a reserve officer with the Colton Police Department. He attended the Riverside Sheriff's 61st Basic Academy in the fall of 1975. In 1978, he received his Bachelor of Arts degree from California Baptist College and his Intermediate Peace Officer certificate. Deputy Evans also received many citizen commendations for his services. On May 9th, 1980, 5 men dressed in Army fatigues robbed the Security Pacific Bank in Norco. The men were carrying automatic weapons. While fleeing with approximately $20,000 in cash, the suspects were being chased by local law enforcement agencies. Towards the end of the auto pursuit, Deputy Evans became the lead car. Due to road conditions, the suspect car stopped. Deputy Evans was caught in crossfire and he was killed. The suspects fled on foot and a massive search for them was conducted through the night and into the next day. 3 of the 5 suspects were captured. 2 suspects were killed during the pursuit. Deputy Evans was survived by his wife and 6 children. He was also survived by his parents, 2 brothers, and 1 sister. Deputy Evans was born in Brownville, Texas. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Chief? Michelle? Any other staff?
Yes, I wanted to give council an update on the traffic calming measures that you recently approved related to North Avenue. We have implemented many of those measures already. The rest on red at Crestview and North is in and active. We put all the signs up as far as stop signs, speed signs, no turn on red. All those signs have been placed by staff. We're putting together all the street paving, striping that we're planning on doing related to this project and for all the various streets that we need to put in. So we're bringing those all together, and then we'll get some quotes on doing that work. We've ordered the speed feedback signs, and they'll be installed. There's 2 that are going to be installed permanently using solar, and we actually ordered 2 more that are going to be mobile that we can install as temporaries on various roads. The first will be California and Crestview to start gathering some data for the Sheriff's Department, and then once we've gathered data, we can use them other places in the city to act as traffic calming measures and actually gather data. So we're trying to be multifunctional in our traffic calming efforts to not only look at this area, but also move these feedback signs to other areas to kind of see how folks react to those measures when they see them, to say, slow down, here's your speed, etc. So that's where we stand at this point in getting those improvements done.
Thank you.
Chad or Andy, on a follow-up on that, do we have another workshop going to come up to discuss further on California North additional innovative traffic calming?
Yes, we're combining information and trying to determine what type of improvements are going to be done on North related to the median. Also looking at our engineers are looking at what can be done related to California and the cursory streets of whether or not, like the question was asked by like speed humps or et cetera, whether or not they're available to put on those roads. And they're still making a determination whether or not that's a viable option. And when we have that information, we'll bring it back to council for consideration and the options that we want to present to you.
And would we do that in a workshop type environment? Okay. And any idea of time, schedule for that?
Not at this time. Still pulling data together and information.
Thank you.
I met with with Andy, the city manager, and I think you're going to give us an update on the emergency response. It's been a year since the fire in the Bluffs last year, Horse Week, so I know you and your staff have been working on it. So we'll probably see in the next month or so an update on response and things like that.
That is correct. We've talked amongst staff, and we'll be bring an update to the city council in the next 30 days.
Robin?
Yeah, I don't know if this is for the chief or Chad, but I've been noticing these fire plugs around town are popping up covered with a black plastic bag. That means they're out of service. How many of them are there and how long are they going to be out of service?
Yes, the contractor that council authorized to go through and do the testing of all the hydrants in the city, they have identified some hydrants that aren't functioning, some hydrants that are flat out missing. And so where there is a hydrant that's not functioning, we do black bag it, or usually we do we try to do an orange bag to say it's highlighted, it's not functioning. We get the reports on a weekly basis of which ones have been identified as an issue, and then Terry takes those reports and schedules staff to try to either replace them, or depending on what the issues are, we may have to hire another crew to replace them because it could be other issues down below why they're not functioning. So, but we are on each of those that have been identified and developing a plan of how to get those back into service. And that was one of the key issues of why we did this, is we need to get these hydrants in working order for public safety.
Right. I don't like to see them set out of service there because most of them are like 600 feet apart in town. And last year there were several of them that sat there till the bags rotted off of them, and that was putting the residents in danger. So I appreciate if you get them working ASAP. Thank you.
Anything else? Public comments are closed. I'm sorry, Lou. Oh, good. I'm glad she's employed. Let's close this meeting in honor of James Evans. Meeting is adjourned.